Hello, everybody. I'm KP, and welcome to Million Dollar Exits, a special segment on my main show, the Build in Public podcast. In this interview series, I sit down with founders who went from an idea to building a business and then eventually selling it for over $1 million, hence the name Million Dollar Exits. This is something I'm very passionate about and curious about at this point in my career. I want to learn and share all the insights, mindset shifts, lessons, and non-obvious tips that are part of this unique journey with the next wave of founders who want to take this path as well. So buckle up and get ready to be inspired and informed. Here's a special shout out to our episode sponsor, Paralect.com. $1 million ideas come from every possible niche. If you're a busy domain expert in marketing, sales, finances, or healthcare and don't want to spend 6 months just to build an MVP, you'll find Paralect super valuable. Paralect is a venture studio built to design, build, and launch a product for you that is ready to sell in under 2 months. Start with no code or go full stack right away. Simply focus on growing your early adopter community and build in public, and they'll take care of the rest. Build your $1 million startup with Paralect.com. Paralect.com. Hello, everybody. I'm KP. I'm your host, and I am super thrilled to welcome Chris to the show, $1 Million Exits. Chris, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Hey there. Thanks so much for having me.
Chris is currently building Loops. And actually, I'm before we dive into your story about the exit and, the company you sold, which is Snazzy AI, I would love to kind of introduce you to the listeners and talk a little bit about what you're building right now.
Sure, definitely. So Loops is a YC company. We went through Y Combinator in early 2022 in the winter 22 batch. Loops is the easiest way to set up email for your SaaS platform. So we help you with product, marketing, and transactional email. Basically everything that you need from an email perspective besides sales email. Usually folks use a combination of SendGrid, Mailgun, MailChimp, Postmark, whatever. They glue it all together. It's expensive. It's a little buggy. No one knows where anything is. Loops unifies that all into a single beautiful interface. Lightning fast, simple, works everywhere, looks great everywhere.
I love it. I saw also the comparison to Framer, and I thought that was pretty cool. And the design, I'm on the wait list, by the way. I need to get off the wait list.
Sure. Happy to.
We'd love to. Yeah. I don't have a SaaS company personally, so I don't know how much is relevant to me, but I do send a lot of outbound emails that currently I use HubSpot and other things for, but we'd love to check out Loops. And I did love
Framer is a customer.
Really? Oh, that's cool.
Framer's a customer and the CEO of Framer's an investor.
That's cool. But I was going to say the design really stood out for me, so I'm curious, do you personally have a design background or where's the love for design coming from?
Sure. Yeah. So we don't have any designers. That's just me. My background is, I started my professional career in design. So I have that, but I actually did a pretty long detour into marketing and growth, including being the 5th hire at a company called Curiosity, which is now a publicly traded company. So I was there for almost 5 years, from one of the first hires to leaving before it IPO'd, which is not a recommendation I would make for other folks in terms of balancing life priorities and things that worked out well. And I'm also a self-taught developer. It's definitely not my strong suit, but I do push code daily at this point. So marketing, design, and developing. Wow. So I'm not great at anything, which basically means I have a pretty strong founder profile. Being exceptionally average at a lot of different things makes for a pretty strong founder, I think.
Yeah, the generalist, especially the growth side of it too. I think a lot of folks don't cross that bridge. They're usually design developers or those skills, but the growth and marketing is a pretty strong complement. All right, so what was your exit story like? I know we touched on Snazzy AI, for a little bit, but if you want to summarize and give us a recap of what happened to Snazzy and what was the exit story like?
Sure. Yeah. So Snazzy was a tool that we built and sold to Unbounce. I guess that's why I'm on this show. Hence the $1 million exit part of it.
Yeah. And that's the company before Loops.
Yeah. So we sold that in 2021 and we were at the acquiring company Unbounce for roughly 6 months. And then the following year, 2022, is when we applied to YC with a bunch of ideas and ended up building Loops. It's now 2023, so you're all caught up.
March.
Yeah, exactly.
16th or something. Yeah.
Timestamp.
Yeah.
3:17 p.m. Eastern. So yeah, we were at Unbounce for a little while, but when we founded Snazzy, there were no other competitors in the space. The competitors at the time would grow to be Jasper, which was previously Conversion AI, and they changed their name to Jarvis.
Was Copy.ai one of the competitors?
Copy.ai was probably the other big one. So those were the two big ones. We were in the same batch of access for OpenAI's early GPT-3 early access.
Yeah.
So I finagled my way in. I'm not 100% sure how I did, but we were in the first batch, and it was like 167 people or something that had access, and they were in there as well. They were much, much better funded, basically just Chris, versus Copy AI, which had venture backing pretty much right out of the gate because it was founded by a venture capitalist, and then Jasper, then Conversion, which was pivot from an existing marketing company. They already had like 1 million plus signups for their existing products, so they could sell into them. We didn't have any of that. They focused on templates for creating marketing copy, and we did as well. But our goal, and part of what we were able to sell Unbounce, was our focus on the generative AI future. Kind of what we're seeing now was something that I was pitching almost 2 years ago. So our goal was to create presentations to do so much more than just marketing copy. We were also the first Chrome extension that let you use GPT-3 anywhere. It was really cool, actually. You could do it in Notes, Notion, just like anything that you could use online. You could use our extension. It was very slick. We did some cool stuff. We innovated a little bit with the OpenAI team. What we didn't do is a ton of marketing, which was something that you can do if you're a very well-funded venture company and you want to put your head down and build for a year.
Right.
It's less possible when you're bootstrapping, which we were doing at that point. So what we found out is that while we were bootstrapping, building really cool tech, like we beat Copy AI by at least a year to a Chrome extension. While we were building all this cool tech, they were just posting on Twitter and marketing like crazy. Like Conversion was spending tens of thousands of dollars a month in Facebook ads.
Yeah.
So we started to do that. Our presence rapidly grew. Revenue rapidly grew. We got on some radars. We got a couple acquisition offers, and Unbounce ended up making the one that made the most sense. I can't share actual revenue, but what I can share is that our revenue was basically doubling at the time of purchase, and it continued to do that as we were absorbed by Unbounce. So it was a great purchase for Unbounce at the time from an acquisition perspective, and it was great for us too.
Right, strategic acquisition. And also it seems like it was an acqui-hire, right? You were there. Did they bring in, who was with you along in the team? Yeah,
so shortly after founding the company, I brought on my co-founder, Adam. Adam and I have worked on a number of projects before. We actually met at Curiosity, which was the first company that I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
And I brought him on and he helped us scale it out. He built some really cool stuff. Some of it I don't think I can talk about, but the tech behind the scenes is awesome. And we were able to quickly...
Unbounce got both of you in?
Yep, just the two of us. And then Unbounce was able to fully build it into their platform. It's now called Smart Copy. If you go to unbounce.com, it's
really?
Right on the headline of the landing page. And it's a big focus of what they're doing. So they had a vision that aligned with what we were hoping for, which was that we would take the API and the really cool stuff that we were able to build on top of it and build that into a platform that had network effects. Like Conversion AI had their existing platform they built on top of. We wanted that for us, and we were able to get that with Unbounce. So
Unbounce is massive, right? Do you remember any stats? Like how big were they when the acquisition happened?
No, but they're freely available. Unbounce is a much older company. They're the largest landing page builder on the internet. Right. If you're in marketing, you've used them before.
Yeah, they're huge. I mean, I feel like their platform definitely is in a whole different league compared to even Conversion, Jasper's or Copy.ai.
Oh, yeah, they're much bigger than all of those companies. Yeah. So that was great. Suddenly we were at the biggest company. So from the smallest to the biggest, and then we were able to integrate into what they were doing into their landing page builder. So all of a sudden you could generate landing pages with AI and you could generate iterations and copy, and we were able to tie that into their millions of data points around headlines. So we basically had this giant headline library we could fine tune against. And it was really, really cool. And once we built it in and we migrated everything over, we hit the 6-month mark and we were like, well, we did the thing.
What now? What's next? Right?
Yeah. We felt like we had one more in us. So we left without a plan at the end of 2021. We took time for our families through the holidays, and then we applied blind late to YC, got in. I think we were the last company that got in, and got with a bunch of ideas, and we ended up building Loops because, if you've used MailChimp, you understand why we're building Loops.
So is Adam with you too in this one?
He is. Yep.
That's so cool. That's cool. So what I love about your story, Chris, is that I've been interviewing a lot of founders in this podcast, especially in this segment, and like the stair-stepping approach that I think often doesn't get enough spotlight on is where you started out as a bootstrap company, you built it, grew it, and got a meaningful exit, and then now you're taking a wild swing because going to YC and building Loops and going after something that's as big of a market like MailChimp is huge. It's a huge TAM market. And so it's very, very cool to see that, you didn't straight up jump to a VC-backed idea. Was that intentional, you think, or was it just serendipitous that you just built a small bootstrap company first and then kind of stair-step there?
The plan was definitely stair-stepping. It's very difficult to break out of the norm and to break out of a small pool when you're a smaller company.
Yeah,
is what I found. You need venture backing to really reach that scale, or you need to lock in for a much longer period of time. There are non-venture backed successful companies, of course, in technology, but it requires growing pretty slowly for a long period of time. Because if, the other option is somebody gets venture funding and they copy your business. And that's the thing that happens often. So we knew we needed venture funding, and we knew we needed a lot more than we currently had. And we also saw some inevitabilities at the end of the OpenAI road. I think some of our previous competitors are probably hitting some of that with ChatGPT, with Microsoft's acquisition and integration into all of their products. Same with Google. I think life gets a lot harder. And in retrospect, I'm very glad that we didn't build a generative presentation building platform based on AI now that generative AI is coming to Google Slides and PowerPoint.
Yeah, I feel like that's become table stakes now, right?
Right.
So I'm curious, so as we speak today, we just saw yesterday and day before, there were 2 back-to-back launches, one from Google and one from Microsoft, both integrating, all these AI features into their suite. But also the biggest launch was GPT-4. I want to hear your take. What do you like about it? What's your opinion?
Cool. Yeah, I'm on the early API access. Also, on top of that, I haven't.
So have you seen the GPT-4 stuff before it came out live this couple of days ago? Is that what you mean?
I can't really talk about it. I don't think too much, but yeah. So I've been able to maintain pretty good inroads with all of those fine folks, and obviously there's the YC tie-in as well. But yeah, so it's awesome. The 32,000 token parameter is pretty crazy. Even the current version, which I think is limited to 8,000, is pretty substantial increase in the amount of tokens that it can take in as a request. I think there's some pretty stunning potential as to what's going to happen. I'm less sold on everybody incorporating GPT-4, 3.5, whatever they currently have access to into their product. I think the way that it will benefit users will be through documentation initially, which you're seeing. I'm not sold on the generative aspect, and I'm not sold on the summarizing.
Interesting. So for Loops, are you being a little cautious about integrating it into Loops' core platform yet? You want to wait a couple months and see if there's a real use case?
If you're a user and you want to send an email about a new product you're releasing to 150, 200,000 people, are you going to generate that with AI? Should you generate that with AI? I lean towards no.
Yeah.
Because one small hallucination, one small error in the generated text, and maybe it places a decimal point where it shouldn't, and you just told your entire user base that something is on sale when it's not, or is much more expensive. So Loops is one of those things where you use inflection points around your company, or you create these automations onboard folks, or you generate a forgot password. Those are things that I don't know that you should be generating with AI. You could do it once, you focus, you do it really well, and then you turn it on, and then you let it continue to function. The saving time of 20 seconds, 5 minutes, whatever it is, versus the potential downside, I think isn't worth the bargain today. I think folks are gonna. I think there's going to be a backlash where folks are going to, summarize a meeting. They're going to summarize it wrong, and then a deal's going to go bad, or they're going to use the AI auto response.
You're going to see a bunch of meme pages, aren't we? Right?
I think you put this in the hands of folks that aren't super familiar with the technology either, and they don't know to look out for hallucinations, or they ignore the warning. Which is, let's be honest, Microsoft Office demographics publicly disclosed is a much older user base.
Right.
So, frankly, if you put this technology in my dad's hands, and it was it automatically summarized something, he would either be angry at it, or B, he would hit send. There would not be an editing process.
It's like when reply all feature, in the email chains, right? It's
like how that's being abused. And could you just imagine if somebody was just letting AI summarize everything over and over and over? And you can tell, right? You can tell by the tone and the demeanor. So you're just maybe your older coworker or your boss is just summarizing words that you say in a different tone and replying. You just know they're just hitting auto reply. Like, how does that make you feel? Just talking about it kind of upsets me a little bit.
Right.
So now
it's
that
gonna be
it's
going to be, yeah. I think it's going to be so. I'm very curious and sort of, definitely very curious and cautious to see like what's going to unfold out of this thing, right? Because it's so powerful. Like the demos that we've seen, like
right.
It's just so much. I feel like even like the top sophisticated, savvy developers think it's very powerful, right? So put that much power in the hands of an average, user. Who knows what it's going to unleash? So we'll see
what's going to happen. I mean, like it's the cat's out of the bag. It's going to happen. Pandora's box is opened.
Yeah.
And now it's being integrated into the largest productivity suite in the world in every single tool available for the same price.
So my prediction is I'm curious to see if everybody will jump on the bandwagon. You know how people like to jump on bandwagon, even like with you think about no code. I was in the no code space for the last 4 or 5 years, and when there was enough traction for the buzzword no code, everybody jumped on it, and then you saw someone like SAP saying like no code. I'm like, SAP is really not like. I think that at that point, like the internet is no code, if you say, like if you will.
Sure.
Everybody jumped on it. Everybody like I understand. It's one thing when Webflow says it's no code, but it's completely different when Bank of America says it's no code, right? Of course, it's no code,
right?
Right. But everybody had just slapped the tagline, and then they just like had a page that described how it's no code and justified it. I have the same sense that this will happen for generative AI because it's so prevalent and so like catchy and buzzy. They're like everyone's gonna say like Notion did the Notion AI integration and then called it Notion AI. Coda did the same. I feel like every tool will attempt to do this, and have their own sort of we're AI forward or something, and might be an overkill.
Can I ask you a question? Have you used like a productivity tool like Notion?
No.
I've been on the beta for ages now, and I have yet to accept any of the suggestions that it has.
It's annoying, actually. I want to turn it off because it's always getting in the way. The only time where I wouldn't say used AI, but the only time I think AI plays a role is when on my Gmail, when it does the auto.
The tab to complete.
And that's not even AI. That's not. It's been around for. Yeah. I mean, it's not even the latest AI feature. It's been around for 2-3 years, right? The auto complete thing.
Yeah, it's using that. I think.
Yeah, that I use because it's just it's very, very native and useful. Everything else feels like it's something that you have to really like. I don't know. It just like to your point, like it feels like an overkill, and like also I think a lot of us we know how to do things, and so you're really not hitting the wall that much. I'm like, I don't like like when I'm writing an email to you, which I wrote an email to invite you to this podcast, I was not thinking what's the right flowery phrase to use to get Chris. I know what to say. Sound like a human, right? So. But I'm curious. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I think. Do you remember when? So there's like all the current waves. There's no code, and then there was crypto,
AI,
and now we're on AI, I guess, right? But one thing I've been seeing is like folks are walking back the crypto stuff, right? They're pulling it out of their products. Like Stripe just brought on the crypto team, then they disbanded the team again. Different people are doing it. Like when FTX exploded, it really took down a large part of the community, and now some of the banks related to that have also turned down further. And we're seeing people take crypto out of products that they had previously put it in because it's not working. It's not providing benefits to the end user. Are we going to see the same thing with AI? I think that's potentially the most interesting. I don't know. If Microsoft can't execute it, then I think we will potentially see it be pulled everywhere because they have access to
the largest surface area. Yeah,
exactly. The largest surface area. So if they can't get it right, then nobody's going to be able to get it right. And just today is when they've announced that it's now in every single Microsoft Office product. So it's on the website. It's live. So we'll see what the reactions are like.
Let's see. I also haven't. The other thing too, I was talking to my wife and asked her, "Hey, have you used Bing recently?" Because OpenAI is integrated to Bing, and Bing's so. If you watch the demo, and if you just go to Bing now, like it's just so powerful compared to your lame Google Chrome browser. But I still am using Google Chrome. And I asked her, and she said no. Like she's like 7 billion people are not going to switch over to a new browser because it's got like a particular new whatever hotshot feature. It's gonna. I think Google still like the old habits are still going to persist. And I'm like very curious to see if as long as Google doesn't sort of implode or doesn't do something stupid to cause their own self-goal, I think they still have the advantage in terms of search, or in terms of like the browser. We'll see again,
Yeah, but Bing has nothing to lose. I mean, well, they do. They do like $3 or $4 billion a year, I think, in revenue. But compared to, that's like Google's entire business, right? 90% of its revenue comes
this is Google's game to lose. Like you said.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Google's game to lose.
This is Google's game to lose. So anyway, so back to our actual set of topics around exits. But this was fun. Thank you. What was your founder journey like before you got to Snazzy, Chris? How did you arrive at that idea?
Yeah, tons of side projects. Most didn't generate any revenue. They were all fun. Yeah, they were all fun. A lot of writing. I find writing to be very cathartic. Maybe that's another reason I'm not a big fan of the AI stuff. It kind of takes away from that somewhat. But I think you need that. I think you need to create a bunch of things so that you know what real market pull looks like, and so you understand like what the complexities are across the board. Like, I've set up a couple Stripe Atlas accounts, and now I know how to handle my taxes, and that's actually surprisingly helpful. I also know that having a large TAM is important. So you kind of need visibility a couple years down the line. And that's one of the things that we got with Loops. We were like, this is a large TAM market. There's a lot that can be built here. Every business needs email. We can build. If we fail, it is no one's fault but our own. This exists. We can make this work. With some of these AI products, they don't have that same visibility down the line. Nobody knows if generating presentations based on a prompt is valuable.
Right.
Long term, like what happens if an incumbent does? I mean, I don't know. I don't think we've seen that proven out yet. And it's a lot sketchier future. However, because nobody knows the size of the market, it's a much buzzier way to raise money. So what we're also seeing, I think, is a lot of early stage companies bolting on AI in order to boost their valuations so that they can raise larger rounds right now. Because if you say, hey, we're building a product that helps you, write product descriptions better, people are like, oh, that's not really interesting. Right. It's like, hey, we're building a product to let you write 500 product descriptions in a minute using AI. Suddenly your pitch changes and you open yourself up to a whole nother type of venture investor, and the TAM suddenly is like, maybe this replaces all product descriptions every year. That's huge. Right. How big is Shopify? This could be bigger than that. Right. But in reality, what happens is Shopify builds product description generation into their app like they did, and then suddenly you don't have a business.
Right. No, well said. I mean, and so while you were building these side projects, were you full-time at some other place, and then you were just building them on the side to eventually become a bootstrap founder?
Yeah, for the most part. I've always worked. That's kind of been a thing for me. I find it, I need to work. I need to do a thing. I need to be constantly moving forward. And if I'm not, I feel like I'm moving backwards. But for the most part, while I had a full-time job, I was always working on some other projects. And in some cases, the projects were just writing. They weren't always the software project.
So with Snazzy, at what point did you ever go full-time on Snazzy? If yes, then what was the inflection point that brought you full-time?
It was very close to the purchase point. Because that's when the revenue eclipsed my bills ages ago. I think that's when the revenue eclipsed my bills, my salary, and then higher than my salary would have been in a best case scenario working at like a FANG or a larger company. And not only mine, but my co-founders as well. Right. So.
Gotcha. Cool. I mean, in the early days, right, did you have any specific challenges while you were pursuing Snazzy? Like what were some hesitations and challenges that you faced early on?
Churn is always a problem with early stage SaaS companies. We mitigated that with our current company somewhat by onboarding every single user for the first year. I did hundreds user onboarding calls.
For Loops?
Wow. And I did 0 for Snazzy. Yeah. And oh my God, the difference between the retention rates between those two companies is bananas. Yeah. So highly recommend doing that. And that's one of the things that I realized during the process is we were building things because I thought they were cool. We were not building things that users wanted all of the time. Now we build things that users want all of the time. And as a result,
you could see them live, right?
Yeah, we see them live. We talk to them. They show us their screens. They say what's working on, what's not working for them, all of that. And every single user, hundreds of users last year onboarded just like this. But not only users that were coming on, users that were like eventual users. So people that are at like mid-market and even enterprise companies.
Still bringing them on, right? Like showing the product to them. Do you feel like you were doing a lot of things that are not scalable now? Was this when you were at Snazzy?
We're now in the scale mode in terms of scalable processes. During YC and last year, definitely not scalable. In fact, they tell you, I mean, do things that don't scale. It's repeated quite a lot. And now we kind of know what's going to scale. So we're starting to build those processes in so we can do that.
So yeah, I mean, were there any myths or misconceptions about exits that you believe were debunked from your experience?
Yeah, it's not a fast process. We have like probably one of the fastest acquisitions for a company worth upwards of 7 figures.
And for you, how long was that process like?
I think it was 45 days, and that's exceptionally fast.
Exceptional, yeah, wow.
Yeah, and that's, like there's multiple teams of lawyers on each side, go back and forth on it. You need buy-in across the board. There's a board of directors. There's also like the investors and shareholders for Unbounce is a large company. So there's a lot that goes into it. They did a lot of the work up front. They were going to purchase a company in this space. So they had prepped some of that ahead of time, which made it faster. They were able to move much more quickly. And then we got lucky with the lawyer that we chose, and he was able to get out of the way. I think I'm not a lawyer, so don't listen to this, but one of the more counterintuitive things is to not listen to your lawyer around some of the things that they get hung up on. There were some things that they would get hung up on that were just inconsequential to us, but it would cause an extra couple of days turnaround time while we discussed it with the lawyer and be like, this isn't a problem. So I think in retrospect, I would have moved even more quickly through some of those barriers that they tossed up and probably brought on a more experienced founder to help me understand where some of the real hangups were, because they weren't in the places that he highlighted. And maybe that could have been my choice of lawyer. But
Interesting. Yeah. I like the part about maybe seeking advice from someone who's been through this process 2-3 times, right? That would have been, I think, helpful, right? That's always a good sort of tip to talk to someone who's been through exactly what you're going through. And so what are a few tips? Let's say 3 tips for someone who's on their idea to exit journey from your experience.
Sure. What stage are you looking for? At the idea or the idea?
You can spread them across.
Okay. Idea stage, you should definitely do something that you want to do long term. I see a lot of folks building sales tools that don't care at all about sales.
Yeah. It's a big mistake. Founder market fit thing. Yeah.
Founder market fit is huge.
Yeah.
VC market fit is the thing that you see when you're seeing founders just plug AI into the products. That's VC market fit.
Yeah.
They want to raise some money. So they're adding features to VC.
The narrative market fit kind of thing, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. So work on something that you definitely want to do. Make sure that you have a supportive partner or some level of stability in your life so that you don't go off the deep end. Depression, anxiety, stress, all that stuff is actually pretty paramount in the founder community. It's not really talked about very much. You see it when you start to connect in person with founders and you talk about what their life is like, especially if things aren't going so well. So, just make sure that you have someone you to rely on, whether it's family or a partner or whatever. And then, so that's more like midway through, because there's going to be those times when things go bad. And then towards the end, the acquisition side of it, it felt like it was. Like, if they don't buy this, we spent up so much time and energy, what is going to happen now?
The sunk cost fallacy.
Exactly. Yeah. It feels very sunk cost. And your acquiring firm, they were great to negotiate with, but they know some of this stuff and they can use that to their advantage and drag it out. That didn't happen with us, but I've seen it happen with other people. And the inverse is actually true. If an acquiring firm is spending this much time talking to you and paying attention to you, then it means you're building something of value. And if you're building something of value and you're having trouble seeing it, just know that other people do see it externally.
So, yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one. I'm glad you spread them across the 3 stages.
Yeah, the 3 stages there.
So in your experience, how did the 80-20 rule play out? What few vital activities of building your startup do you believe in have resulted in high leverage outcomes?
So from a marketing and growth perspective, the biggest mistake that I see people make is to spread out their efforts across different channels. And you should definitely find a channel that works and then double, triple, quadruple down. That's the best way to do it. So with Loops, actually, we did it with Snazzy. Companies. With Snazzy, we do it on TikTok. We were super successful.
Wow.
And I've been successful with 2 other companies and where I worked in marketing growth positions utilizing TikTok, so I knew it was going to work well. And it was incredibly successful. Tens of thousands of new users a day through TikTok at its high point. We also made it a freemium tool, so that played in really well with TikTok. It's a good user base for that. And with Loops, we're seeing it on Twitter. So that's where we're spending our time and focus. Previous to this company. You
must have tried TikTok for Loops too as an experiment, no?
Yeah, a little bit. It's not the right sector is kind of what we've seen. We want B2B founders and for the most part, B2B SaaS founders, and for the most part, like the density is really high on Twitter.
Yeah.
The effort to outcome ratio is really high. Like I can make a tweet, spend 5 minutes on it, 2 minutes on it, and it can result in like 40 new signups.
Right.
And versus the amount of TikToks I would have to do. And I do have a TikTok. You can find me. I'm at Product Market Fit on TikTok.
What? No way. That's your handle. That's cool.
Yeah, it's not bad, right?
That's cool.
So,
but what's fascinating in this just example here is that there's no one silver bullet is what I'm learning from one company to the other, right? Like even within the company or within the one journey, what may work for you the first 6 months may not work for you the next 6 months, right? So it's good to keep an open mind about channels.
Definitely. Go where your users are is a big part of it. LinkedIn would be successful if I didn't despise posting on LinkedIn so much.
If it wasn't such a cringe show on LinkedIn.
Right. If you're a B2B founder and you can handle cringe, there's probably not a better place to be than LinkedIn.
I can't bring myself to post on LinkedIn as well, man. So, and I know it's a missed opportunity. So it like really kills me. It's like, God,
Yeah, go where the social network vibe is taking you. Like 6 years ago, Facebook was the place. Facebook groups were definitely the place. YouTube SEO was great for us at a previous company. So, that works really well. Wherever you find that you're getting distribution is where you should go. And distribution usually happens with social. You should definitely nail organic first. Certainly not do any paid advertising in your first year if you can afford not to do that. It's a bad sign if you have to do paid advertising in year one.
So from product, I mean, you just touched on growth and marketing and some tips there. Like from product, what were some 80-20 like rules that, gave you higher leverage results?
I mean, talking to users is always the best thing that you can do with your time. And
I have a question about the talking to users part. I feel like it's like one of those things like do things that don't scale. It's a very, very prevalent and cliche advice, but it's hard to execute it.
It's so easy to execute it.
What's that?
It's so easy to execute it.
I'm going to get there, which is imagine a founder listening to this and they're like, I know everybody says talk to users.
Yeah.
I have to, what's my excuse to talk to them? How do I get, I already did my onboarding call 10 days ago. They're onboarded. They're tinkering with the tool. How else should I insert myself into their life to talk to users? This is a popular question, by the way, that I get. So I'm curious what your answer.
Well, it depends what you're building. If you're building like a PLG tool, then if it's users and they're 10 days in and they're not using the tool, then you have a problem, right? You need to find out why they're not. Like you can review screen sessions too. There's a million tools that'll help you do that. But just asking them why they're not using their tool is great, especially if you have a personal rapport with them because you've chatted with them. You built that connection. So just reply to the email that you have with them and be like, hey, it's been 10 days. I noticed that you're not using the platform. What's going on? And, make it a little friendlier.
Yeah.
Use GPT-4 to make it a little friendlier. But just keep it really simple. Be like, hey, just checking in. I send, hey, just checking in type emails all the time because I still have that personal connection with users. But the real problem that you see with founders early on, when they say, I don't know how to talk to users, how am I going to find this? Like, if that's your problem, then you have a really big problem because you don't know where to get users. If you have trouble talking to your users, then you're in bad shape with your product. And you should have thought about that really early. So we charged our first users $99 a month for unlimited emails, flat rate, 7 days after we started building. And we got 3 users to sign up out of like 20 that we talked to. 2 of those users are still with us a year on.
Wow.
One of them canceled like 2 months in when they realized it was nowhere near where they needed to be. But what we had was literally a text editor. That was it, like some off-the-shelf text editor. You hit save and you hit publish, and then that sent us like an email to send it out. And we would manually send it basically in the back end for you.
Right.
And that's what people were paying for. And you know what? Most people that we talked to did not want that. They did tell us what they did want, and we continue to talk to those people in the future as we started to build this stuff out. But a couple people, it worked for them. And we just kept building and kept finding more and more and more people to the point where by the time at the end of the year, our conversion rate off of calls was like 80 or 90% for users to at the very least sign up and begin to use our platform. And when we started, it was extremely low, 10 to 20 at a max.
Well, what's been consistent is that you still kept talking to users, even if they were pushing the product away because they were like, this is not good enough for us yet.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And we're actually adding probably this week, maybe next week, a button in the app to literally just book a session with me to chat because I'm not onboarding users anymore. Now you get an invite code and you can go sign it up, but I still want that personal connection to offer people the personal connection. So it's going to literally have a link to my Calendly. You can book a session, talk to me. So
that's cool. So when you were building Snazzy, switching back to that, how much time were you allocating on building Snazzy versus other activities in life? Like I know you were you had a full-time job. So how were you juggling these things? Which is another question that a lot of people have, like, oh, I have a full-time job, I can't build something on the side, or so on.
Well, then you don't want it enough.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, I mean,
generally, like, what was the
you problem for sure?
Yeah, what was the juggling like?
I mean, I was routinely getting 4 to 6 hours of sleep at best. You just do it. You just don't have any other hobbies. That's actually a superpower, is not having hobbies, is to make your business a hobby, and then you get really into it. Like, don't play video games.
Yeah, don't watch Netflix.
Don't watch. Yeah, just take all of those leisure activities and replace it with building a business. And if that doesn't work for you, then you probably shouldn't be founding a company.
Yeah, work at another company. Work at a startup or work at another company.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You know what's funny? So yesterday I was on the Indie Hackers podcast, and Cortland DM'd me. You know Cortland Allen, right? The founder of Indie Hackers, and he DM'd me like an hour before, and he goes, "KP, what are your hobbies?" And I was like, "Man, I have no hobbies. My whole hobby is just being a founder. Like if I have like 5 minutes time left, I want to do either the podcast. Like all my hobbies are all tied back to the business somehow, right? And what's left is like the time with Neil, like we were talking about earlier, like
family.
Time with my son and my wife, and they both always say that there's not enough time. So it's like I got no hobbies, Cortland. That's my story.
And that's honestly, and if that's a problem, then that sucks because you're competing against people that don't have hobbies. So it's not. It's just the way it is, man. You're competing with some very driven 20-year-old Stanford dropout that has nothing in his life but building this thing and about $10 million of venture capital. So good luck. Those are the people you're competing against, and they mint new ones every single week.
Yeah, I think it's the personality of the founder. I think generally, like it takes this kind of sort of obsession about whatever you're building, and in a healthy way, like obsession, not like in a weird way, but like you're just like thinking about it in your shower all the time, like so it's just natural that you don't have time for leisure or hobbies. I mean, I still do other things now after, but like there were phases of my career where I was like so hell bent, like just that thing. So I can relate to what you were saying about the no hobbies part. Okay. This is another good one. How did you handle copycats? I know you had a lot. It's not just copycats, but competitors in general.
I mean, we had real copycats. We had people that copied our site, our documentation, word for word, our icons, some of which I made myself. Our loops name would be in their documentation.
Control F.
It was ridiculous. So I think I'm finally mature enough at this ripe old age, like 30 something, 34.
I'm 34 too. That's cool.
Internet. Yeah.
Are you 88? 1988?
Yeah.
Me too. Wow, nice.
So what I finally realized is it doesn't matter what competitors do, and that you shouldn't pay any attention to them. It's basically, if you want to pay attention to competitors and they've like cloned you so much to the point that your company name is in their documentation, like you need to talk to a lawyer and then you can sue them. And if that's not the path that you want to do, you can name and shame publicly, but the vibes aren't going to be great. You're going to get defenders from both sides. It's going to drag you down mentally. It's generally not worth it. Doing negative things on the internet publicly is mostly not worth it, and I find to be a real drain on my personality, my energy, my family life as a result. I'm just thinking about that stuff. Yeah. So I try to do positive things on the internet now, and I try to ignore competitors and copycats.
Yeah. Who are 3 people you would recommend others to follow to learn more about building and selling companies? Doesn't have to be 3, but whoever come to mind.
Yeah, I don't think you should follow anybody. I don't know. I think you should probably do your own thing. Like, you don't need any advice. The only advice that you need is that you should go talk to users, and then you should try to build something where they'll give you money. And that's really it. There's literally nothing else. In Y Combinator, I got in and I was like, okay, we're going to go. I'm going to hear the secret words of wisdom from freaking Paul Graham, Michael Seibel, and these gods of the startup world. And you know what they said? The same stuff that's publicly available. They just repeated it more and more often face to face.
Can we actually talk about that a little bit? I want to kind of go a little deeper into your YC experience, because that's another thing that, is everyone wants to know what it's like to be inside YC. What were 2 or 3 big reflections you had while you were there? Like, one of them seems to me that what's inside is not any different from what's outside publicly on the startup school, the advice stuff.
Yeah, ignore conventional wisdom. The companies that did the best were the quietest. So 2 examples. These are companies that were in our like mini batch. So like broken out from the main YC thing. There's 6 companies in
Like
in
a
it
pod?
with us.
Is it like a
Yeah,
pod?
pod basically. Yeah. So there's 2 of them. One was a founder that left Facebook, and he was a solo founder when he came in. He ended up bringing on a co-founder they previously knew. He didn't have a product until halfway through. He was selling exclusively to enterprise companies. They hit their Series A in 10 months, and they did $1 million of revenue in less than 10 months. And every customer they bring on is $150K in MRR minimum.
Yeah.
And they have, like their TAM is like maybe a couple hundred companies today. He has posted like twice on LinkedIn, doesn't have a Twitter account, doesn't go to any of the events, just knows this industry super well, incredibly intelligent, lives in DC near me.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Just absolutely smashing it. One of the most successful companies in the batch. Nobody even knows who he is or what his company does. So there's that person. And then there's another person who is also in our batch, and they pivoted halfway through from one tool to something completely unrelated. He's not a technical founder. He's actually has a government background, and he learned sales basically in YC. And they got to 10K MRR a week after pivoting, which is astonishing. And he just did it through sales and bringing on large contracts. And the technical team was building it, and he was just out there pitching until somebody said yes. And he was relentless, highly caffeinated, a little bit older. He was in like, I think mid or late 30s, early 40s. And it doesn't fit your profile at all. Non-technical, never written a line of code. And he was pitching not a dev tool, but like a dev infrastructure level tool. His CTO pitched him on it. They pivoted away from what they were previously doing that was more in his wheelhouse, and they're wildly successful. So those are 2 people in our little limited pod, don't fit any of the standard things, didn't do YC Startup School, aren't on Twitter, aren't on any of these places, don't know what indie hackers is if you ask them. Extremely successful building software products out of YC. So you shouldn't follow anybody. You should just go talk to users, know your market, and then build something that people want to pay you for. Because that's really all there is to it.
Yeah. There's as many molds of this as there are humans of this, right? Like there's no one mold, seems to me.
Exactly. It's just, you're hearing about the people that are successful on Twitter and on indie hackers because that's what they've chosen. They've said yes to some podcasts. Hey, they've done the posts and they're celebrating. But the really rich ones are the quiet ones.
Yeah.
They're the ones.
All things in life, right? The real ones. Like, you don't see Warren Buffett on Twitter.
What's that phrase? Rich yells, wealth whispers or something?
Yeah. It's no. Like I was saying, like Warren Buffett doesn't sit there and write threads, and Charlie Munger doesn't give a shit. Like I saw him really lay into the crypto, people. Right. One of the recent, interviews, he's like doesn't care what Twitter thinks. He just goes into it. Anyway, that was it. That was my last question for you, Chris. Thank you so much. This was such pleasure, so much fun. I learned a lot about the journey, and hopefully this was fun for you, like walking down the memory lane. And thank you so much again.
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate talking to a fellow oldie, 88.
Yeah. There we go. We're here. Yeah. Awesome. Have a good one, okay? Thank you.
Thank you.